Oh,
Morning. The recording is in progress. There you go. I'm so happy to be here this morning. It's a it's a lovely day, and I see that we already have some guests that already started early, coming into the meeting at 12 noon. We'll try our best to stop at 1, but we have some fantastic guests coming on today. I just want to welcome you to the Differently Abled Network. And I'm Ask Dr. Applewhite. I'm Dr. Danita Applewhite. And we have some very, very intriguing questions today to explore. One of them, the main one, is why me, the why me question. So before I get into that, I do want to let you know that we have Lori Elward, who's helping me with this PowerPoint presentation. And so I'll be asking her to move the slides. And Peter, it's so nice to see you. There you go, Peter.
well,
So good,
how are you?
so good to see you. Peter Quinn from Paralyzed Veterans of America. And I believe Dr. Cheryl Schmidt is on. Dr. Cheryl Schmidt, we have you on here too. I just want to say good morning to you. And thank you so
Good
much.
morning. Yeah, I'm going to move my computer out somewhere because my husband is taking a nap here.
Okay, no problem. Well, here's what I'd like to tell you about the Differently Abled Network. We started this as a program of White Apple Institute. Go to the next slide. And White Apple Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a slide reader because I like to talk to people and I like to interact with you. So this is a very interactive Zoom because that's how I like to teach for the last 40 plus years of teaching. I love to be interactive. So if I call on you, then just feel comfortable to jump in at any time and with your comments. But why we started the Differently Abled Network is that it's a compilation of people, community business partners that, like myself, who came together and said we want to help. Help who? The underserved, especially underserved adults with disabilities. And also we wanted to focus on our fellow veterans. Why did we want to do that? Because for some reason, people who are going to school and working and that land up in the most unfortunate situations seem to have a challenge going to agencies and getting help. They're looked at as you're going to school, you're working, what do you need? But they don't understand. Many times, many agencies do not understand that we get stuck in these situations where we don't have a support system. And that support system is so, so very important. And so we lose that when we lose that support system of our family members or our friends that can at one time or another, now just picture this for a minute, someone trying to get to a job interview and their tire blows out and they don't have a support system. They don't have the credit card to throw out for whatever reason. There's a lot of different reasons for this. But they can call the Differently Abled Network, and as a member of that Differently Abled Network, we provide through donations enough money to fix the tire so that they can get to that job interview. We also cover childcare costs. Sometimes the babysitter doesn't show up. Sometimes you get a job. Just recently, we had someone just get a job, and they needed part of their uniform. They needed boots for their uniform, and they didn't expect that. So that's what the Differently Abled Network was designed to do from the very, very beginning. And it's just exploded into doing a podcast every month, which has been wonderful. And I'm just so glad to have people that are really interested in what we're trying to do at the Institute, at White Apple Institute. Next slide. So what can you do? Well, we're going to talk about making a donation. We're going to talk about volunteering time. But I don't want to bother you with that right now. I'll come back to that a little later on because I want you to see what we do first so that I can get you excited. about the possibility of making a donation or volunteering some time. And I appreciate the people that are on today. They're actually volunteering their time to come on and share with you about their organizations, share with you their thoughts and their inspiration, their inspirational thoughts that are going to help you to take this into the community. And you never know, someone that's sitting next to you could be underserved, and they're dressed up, they look just great, everything looks great in their life, but you see some different things that are going on. I have a perfect example for you. Um, Someone was sitting next to someone at work and noticed that all of a sudden they were always going to get coffee with them, and they stopped getting coffee. So she asked why they stopped getting coffee together, and a whole bunch of stuff opened up for them, that they were going through homelessness, and they still looked great, and they were still at work, but they were going through homelessness. They had children. They were trying to go to school. So you never know. Next slide. So how are we changing? How are we changing the perception of disabled to differently able? Because that's what we do at the Differently Abled Network. We actually are working on helping people in our society to see the disabled, that label of disabled, as looking at people as what they can do versus what they can't do. I know when I first received the label of disabled, 100% permanently disabled, and unfortunately catastrophically disabled by the Veterans Administration, I it was devastating to me that most people, when if I even said that to them, would automatically assume that I could not do certain things, and I could still do a lot. And I hope that I've proven that by just sitting here today and speaking to you and wanting to help others, because that is my volunteer time. There's three ways that we help people in the Differently Able Network. Three major things that we do. We connect people to resources, and we educate them on self-advocacy, and we also support them with mentorship and that funding that I talked about a little while ago. Now, it's real important. I just want to break this down just a little bit, and I'll make sure that I watch my time here. We support them, we connect them to resources that are really appropriate resources, because many times people will hand others a piece of paper with a lot of names of agencies on them and say, here, call these agencies and see if you can get some help, without even looking at the fact, and I'm sure, Peter, that you can validate this, without even looking at the fact that can the person even get to those agencies that we're giving them the name and number for, okay, or whether or not those agencies are still operating, because a lot of times the numbers are disconnected or there's no callback. And that can be very, very frustrating, especially for our veterans who have served our country. My fellow veterans are really, really upset when they can't get through to agencies and we give them those numbers. So we connect them to valid resources. We educate them on self-advocacy, and that self-advocacy is about, after an injury and illness, we try to go back to work or try to go back to school, and we don't know how to talk about our need for accommodations for a different chair, accommodations for more time for testing, or more time to go even to the bathroom. These are accommodations that people feel very uncomfortable asking for. So we educate you on self-advocacy. And then that support system, I can't tell you how wonderful that has been. The support system with the mentors that have come on board and are able to talk to people and that are underserved. And when I say underserved, let me define underserved, because the Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services, has defined it as people who live in a poverty area, people who are vulnerable to different illnesses, especially mental health. But we go a step further with underserved. We take underserved into the disability arena, and we also look at people who are struggling. We call it the struggle to juggle. The struggle to juggle classes and job schedules. The struggle to juggle um, parenting and family responsibilities, emotional and financial crises. Now, if you can imagine all of that happening at one time, it does. It does. And then on top of that, trying to handle a hidden disability. It becomes overwhelming. But like me and like so many others that we've been able to help, they've been able to survive and get through school. And I tell you, the most exciting thing, and I think, Peter, that, and Dr. Smith, you can probably validate, is watching someone come from being so underserved and homeless on the street to actually graduating or getting a job. Isn't that the most fantastic feeling?
It is.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So we utilize various community business partners and technology platforms like Unite Us, which allows us not only to help people in Arizona, we're based in Arizona, but we are nationwide because of the fact, well, the internet in itself makes us nationwide, almost international in a way. But we are able to really reach out and touch a lot of people because of our technology platforms. Next slide. Next. This is what I wanted you to think about today. This is the question that we're exploring this month, is why me? And I just want to tell you that so many people, when I've even told them about why me, and that we're talking about this month, have said, that it's pretty much a negative term. That's how it's been looked at. But I've got something I got to tell you about this negative term that I've kind of turned it into a positive. When we ask why me, it's because we have misfortunes that happen in our life, injustices that we can't really explain. And I just recently came in contact with a lady by the name of, we'll call her Juanita, for the sake of her identity. And she watched people running from the fires in Pacific Palisades, California, just recently. And what got me about this lady is that she kind of like falls into so many different things happening at one time to one person. She's from El Salvador. She had been working on her citizenship and had a work visa that expired, unfortunately. She had so many different problems going on with her son. I believe it was her son and her sister that got her into so many legal and financial problems. And all of these things are happening in her life. And again, now she's unemployed because of the fires in Pacific Palisades. So she has lost her job. But on top of that, Juanita has severe rheumatoid arthritis. And that severe rheumatoid arthritis has limited her on her ability to look at positions in other areas. But here's what got me about her, is her teardrop. She dropped tears of sadness and she dropped tears of joy. Okay, joy for what? I mean, you'd say, this person is going through so much, but she was grateful to be alive. And I think that's what did it for me with the why me question, is that it becomes a coping mechanism. And next slide, I just want to show you that asking why me can be a coping mechanism. It can actually, now let me tell you what I mean when I say that. It can actually open up doors for discussion. So instead of saying when somebody says why me, or they have that, there's different types of ways that we can say why me. And it's just many times interpreted as I'm feeling sorry for myself. But let's look at it a different way, that it's a way that we can actually open up the door to discuss what's really going on with an individual and understand the injustices that they're suffering through. But here's what I'd like people to understand, is when we ask the why me, there is no answer. It's because life is so unpredictable, there is no answer. And so that's why the why me becomes something that's so natural to us. It should become so natural to us, for everyone. I'll tell you why, Lori. I'll tell you why. There's two reasons. It's natural for people to feel the injustices. It's natural for people to feel, especially if they're affected by the same identical thing that somebody else is affected by, and they see the other person coming out with flying colors, so to speak, or no scratches on them. I know just recently I was talking to a person who was telling me about the cancer that she had, and that she was dealing with losing her hair and going through a whole bunch of stuff with chemotherapy and still trying to go to school. And she was looking at another person who was sitting beside her at Mayo Clinic, who was talking about her trip to the Caribbean next month, and she was there in the cancer unit also. Now, what's the difference between the two? There is really no difference. They're both suffering the injustices, but there's a difference in the attitude of looking at the why me question. So I would like to know, is Dr. Anita Miranda here yet? Because we have a special honorary guest coming on today. And I'm so happy to see Zenny Stewart here. Zenny Stewart, one of our fellow veterans. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you get, if there's an opportunity, I hope that you'll be able to jump in as a woman veteran when we come to the veterans feature and talk about this. But the why me is so very, very important for us to understand from the perspective of not just why me, but why not me. Anything that I've talked about today could happen to any of us at any time. So without further ado, I thought that Dr. Anita Miranda was here yet. Is Dr. Miranda here?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Dr. Anita Miranda. She has a long history of understanding a little bit about the differently able network. She knows us from, go ahead, you can go to that slide. You can go to that slide, that next slide, please. Okay. She knows the history of the differently able network and how we've helped people in the struggle to juggle the things that I've talked about previously. But one of the things that I know about her is that she understands. I have 9 survival tips that I talk about, and I wanted to share 3 of them with you before I move any further to our honorary speaker today, because she's going to focus on some of these things. In order to make sure that we don't set ourselves up for the why me, we need to make sure that we look at how we take care of our physical bodies. We all know the rules of sleeping and eating and how we're supposed to basically take care of stress in our lives. But we don't do it sometimes. And I was told once that that's like a slow suicide. I said, my goodness, what a slow suicide. That's a horrible, I thought at that time it was a horrible statement to make, because who of us would think about suicide on a regular basis like that? But it really is true that when we don't take care of ourselves from a physical standpoint and even a mental standpoint, making sure that we socialize with people that don't bring toxicity into our life. We want to make sure that we also take care of our spiritual mind, if you will, and making sure that we don't allow stress to overwhelm us. I'm so happy that I can introduce Dr. Anita Miranda today to talk more about the why me syndrome. And I just got to tell you this about her. In addition to her being having so many different things going on in her life where she could definitely be the why me, she could be the why me poster child, because she grew up in the foster home settings and had a pretty rough life. But here she is with a private practice. As a matter of fact, she just opened up. She'll tell you more about the locations and what she's doing as someone called the Kiss Whisperer. So without further ado, Dr. Anita Miranda, are you there?
She's apparently muted.
I
Somebody said
am.
in
Can
the
you hear
chat.
me?
Oh,
There she
yes.
is.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Hello?
hope you got
One
a
second.
real gist. Did you get a real gist of what I was talking about there as far as the why me syndrome?
Oh, absolutely. I am so sorry. Everything that could go wrong in my office went wrong. So here I am. Here I am. 1 second.
Well, I meant to have your book in front of me. Okay. today. I meant to have your book in front of me because we can find your book on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, give me 1 second,
Okay,
please.
no problem. Take your time.
There.
Take your time.
Perfect. So I think I'm on video and you all could hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you just
Okay.
fine.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for that introduction. And absolutely, Applewhite and I have known each other for not only many years, but we've collaborated not only in a professional level, but in a personal level. And I would have to say, she's like one of my heroes. Every day she gets up, she is grateful. She thanks the Heavenly Father, and she's always, how can I help people? And I love that about her. So I just wanted to shout out for you.
Thank you. What about this why me syndrome? Why is it such a negative? It's looked at as such a negative term when it can be, I don't know if you agree with me, can be looked at as a coping mechanism, as a way of opening up discussion about why do you feel why me? Why are you feeling like the victim, so to speak?
Right. And I would actually have to say that's quote unquote is why me. And that's pretty much the go-to in anywhere that you feel like, why me? You know, I'm the victim. I didn't do anything. It could even be a death in the family and my death of my daughter. Why her? Why me?
Yes.
And so, yes, it's questioning, and I'm actually going to go a little bit more into the spiritual part of that. And what really helped me with my daughter, she was only 34, and I couldn't understand, you know, why me, why her? And someone actually shared to me that just think about this, that God has angels have their hands reaching, say, come to me, my child. And I'm the mom saying, no, stay with me. And me as a mom, what would I want? We want the best for our children. We want them to be happy. And I wanted her to be at peace. So once I understood that it was God's will, I was able to put that to rest. But I struggled, and suicide idealization. Why me? Why couldn't I prevent it? I'm a kiss whisperer. So, that's kind of like what I struggled with. And not until the divorce of 2 years ago and me opening this practice could I stand in my light and say, why in the hell not me?
Right, exactly. Why not me?
Mhm.
Right, because it happens to other people also. And you've been
Yes,
able to help them. You've been able to help them with what you do, with just being the inspirational piece that you are in my life and in other
thank
lives.
you. Thank you. What we had shared a little bit and what I wanted to share in this very important platform is being a survivor of MST, military sexual trauma,
Yes.
and started from my childhood, why me? And then it went on to college, why me? And then when it went on to the military, it was why me? And I'm the kind of girl that, no one messes with. You can't get me to do anything. My boundaries, I've always been very stubborn. So my question was, why me? Why me at this age and this age, this age and this age? Well, all I can really talk about is, the former. And what I have learned and through my studies and my spiritual awakenings is I'm just going to say most perpetrators of some sort, from child to the military, they look for the alpha women. They look for the women that are no nonsense, and they are not going to be able to knock on that door and take advantage. But what happens is they're very good. They watch for that weakness. They watch for that little bit of time that you're down, and somehow they get into that. And when you're vulnerable, they pounce on you. So what happens? Like for me, I was assaulted in the military. It was like my first 6 months. And I didn't understand because I joined the military because I needed comrades. I felt like this is my family. I've never had a family. So it really did, not only a number on me, but what happened is I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't tell anyone. People think I'm strong. People think that, I don't take anything from anyone. And I just joined this adventure, and it's like, why me? So many times, women and men that have gone through this do not share it with anyone because, again, not only is it why me, but how in the heck could it happen to me? I have every single device available. The only thing saving me, Dr. Applewhite, is I happen to be crying a lot. And so they sent me to the counselor. I didn't even know what a therapist was, up from the farm. So they sent me to the counselor and we talked about it. And because we talked about it, that was my one little nexus, my one tiny little nexus, because I never told anyone again. Move on years ago, 10 years ago, again, joined the VA for my health benefits. And one of the questions, have you ever been assaulted or raped in the military? And it was bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, yes.
Right.
So that
Wow.
was put in my record. Baby little step, just told a little bit. So a few years later, that was the only proof I had. I had absolutely no proof. And President Clinton actually gave us the basis that we don't have to have proof. We have to demonstrate the behavior. And because of
Yes.
that, I'm 100% service connected. I give back to the community. My time and my life every day is how can I help others so I can stay present and love myself.
Well, one of the things that I'd love you to just elaborate on a little bit is your book for one. Mama's, I don't have it in front of me. I'm so sorry. That's
No, no, no.
my
Yeah,
error.
it's Nana knows PTSD.
Mhm.
And I wrote this quite a few years ago. And I actually
Yes.
wrote it for my partner because, he didn't understand where I was coming from. But when I wrote this book, I wrote it from a child's perspective, but an adult had to read it to the child.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought about how many times have I heard veterans say, no, that's not me, and I don't need help, and I'm strong. But what happens when you read a cartoon to your child, to your children, and they look up at you with innocent eyes and they say, Daddy, Mommy, that's you. Because of
Mhm.
that, I was
Mhm.
able to bridge, I was able to turn the light on. And then it has a workbook. And I would say that's one of my biggest contributors and healing for me. And the workbook has say this, not that. So people out there, I don't know, I have triggers. One is people are laughing at you. Don't say that. And it is something else. So you write 10 things that are triggers, really the ones, and then you write, say that. And that's really helped me with my
Wow.
community and my circle.
That's a great survival tip in itself.
Yeah.
When we
Right.
talk about, acknowledging the stress in our life and making sure that, stress, I can talk forever on stress,
Mhm.
on how much it causes chronic constriction, pain in your body and sets you up for certain things. And all of the things that I talked about as far as survival, um, if we don't take care of ourselves, the why me syndrome takes over on us and we become the victim instead of using it as a coping mechanism. And one of the things that I like about your book is that it actually answers the question about MST and about the post-traumatic stress disorder period. And we on our veterans feature, I'm going to have Peter Quinn will elaborate a little bit further on that. And I think that when Dr. Jane Garcia comes on, she'll be able to talk a little bit more about MST. But thank you so
Sure.
much for bringing that out. Before you leave us, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your practice. What are you doing? I'm so proud of you and your practice.
So thank you very much. Well, first, I am the official Kiss print reader. I created this to be fun and kind of get out there, and it's just grew, and it's really, I'm known countries all over, and I'm the official Kiss print reader. But what I found when I shared people's past, present, and future, that they were excited, just like us, when we find out that we can get help, we're excited. But then they had to move on. I didn't have the tools to be able to say that. Well, during the pandemic, I earned my doctorate, and I put
Mhm.
together the tools of what I used and how can I overcome the basis, therapy, all those other things. But I
Mhm.
wanted to
Mhm.
be able to have a place. So first it was online, and now I have 3 locations, a location near you, Mesa, Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, and now the West Valley. And all 3 have the modalities of being able to kiss print and do the evaluation, and then which is like a x-ray, and then the muscle testing is like the MRI. And all 3 you're able to get that first step, get that cleansing. Therefore, you can move forward and get get the help you need, because until you feel whole, until you can actually concentrate, until you feel like you can love yourself, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter what pills, what resources, it doesn't matter anything. You have to get to the root of it, let it go, and be that brand new baby. However, be you.
That's it. That's it. And you know, listen, I've got to say this, and I hope that you take this as a compliment. I look at you, and from your background, you were labeled as underserved. You were labeled as disabled. You were labeled as so many things. And when I spoke a little earlier about the 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 feeling of the beautiful feeling that we have when we see someone that has been comes from underserved to now being served in our society and serving others. I mean, that's really, really an accomplishment, because
Yeah.
I mean, we get people to the point where they're out of the underserved category and they move on with their lives. But when they turn around and they help other people, that's a real plus. And so we thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And we thank you so much for your book. And is your book available on Amazon?
It is, but I would like to leave a nugget for your listeners, and that
Absolutely,
is
please.
what changed me and what kept me going is my mom told me, my mom died when she was 51. She told me when I was young, she said, daughter, I know I can't take care of you. I can't take care of you emotionally, physically, in any way. But when I go, I will always take care of you. But this is what I can leave you with. No matter what you do go as far as you can with your education. People will try to take your liberty, your freedom, your speech, your body, so many other things. And I just described how it was.
Ah,
It was taken, but my mind, my education, and what my mother instilled. So I actually went to school when I was homeless. I went to school when I was a single parent. I went to school when all I wanted to do was just lay down and not wake up. So don't
yes.
give up. No one could take your education one step at a time. If I can do it, quitting school at 15, your listeners and others that come to you, Dr. Applewhite, they're the ones that need to just really realize and get that deep, because we're all beautiful. We're all broken, but let's put the pieces back together because we're not shattered. And how to reach me, his number is 877-605-6389. Please go to kisswhisper.com. You'll get all the great information, free kisses on me, and anyone that actually follows Dr. Applewhite, I will actually send you the entire series digital. I would love to gift that
Wow.
to your listeners and to
Oh,
your
wow.
library, Dr. Applewhite.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I don't know if you understood what she does. I mean, she takes the impression of a lip and the impression of the lip and makes a reading from that impression. So that's what did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So look forward to that. So as we move on, please stay with us, Dr. Miranda, if it's possible, because we're going to ask now for a veteran speaker to begin.
All right. I'm going to
And
be on my cell phone, so I
oh,
will
wonderful,
continue.
wonderful, wonderful. Feel
Bye
feel
now.
free to jump in whenever. Okay. I don't believe that is Dr. Jane is on. Dr. Jane, did you have an opportunity to hear a little bit of what Dr. Anita Miranda had to say about the
Yes,
Y syndrome?
yes, I did.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you,
Well,
Dr. Miranda.
we have another special guest today, Peter Quinn. He'll be talking more about Paralyzed Veterans of America. But I wanted to have your feedback on the Why Me syndrome and especially military sexual trauma. Dr. Jane Garcia of Reintegrate, and also Dr. Jane Garcia is a board member for White Apple Institute.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Miranda, thank you so much for, um, the input that you gave us today. Um, sometimes we ask, this is something that we all do, asking why me as we're trying to get answers and we're trying to understand.
Mhm.
Right? We're
Right.
trying to understand our experiences because we have to make meaning from our experiences in order to be able to move forward.
Yes.
And during that meaning making of our experiences, we have these questions. And so sometimes we're not going to have answer to those questions. So in the case of military sexual trauma. In fact, different types of traumas. Sometimes the individual who experienced the trauma does not get an answer to the reason why.
Yes. Because there is no answer. There is no answer, right? I mean, life is so unpredictable that there really isn't an answer. You agree?
Yes, I agree. And so, because there is no answer to the question, sometimes people get caught up in that rumination of asking why, and that circular
The victim
cycle.
circle, the
Yes,
victim
the
circle.
victim
Yeah.
circle.
Mhm.
And so they get caught up in the victim circle trying to understand why, trying to figure out why. And so I'm glad that, she highlights some of those ideas. Because then, in not getting the answer to the why, we still have to figure out ways to move forward and to
Yes.
be victorious, and triumphant, as opposed to being in the victim mode, because then it's funny. And as I was listening to her talk, um, I got the image of like an onion and an octopus at the same time.
An onion and an octopus. Oh, please explain.
you know because then, as an individual stay in that mode, then
Yes.
you have layers and layers of um issues that may come up, or that issues that are created because the individual is in that mode. And as you have those layers like an onion, you also have it spanning into different areas of the person's life. And so that's the octopus, where it's just stretching in 50 million directions, and the person, kind of spiral out of themselves.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
you know, and so I am so glad, with the work that she is doing, to bring some of these ideas, some of her ideas, and, into the forefront, of the public's consciousness. Now,
But you do too, Dr. Jane. You do too with because your programs, and especially your upcoming programs, you'll be talking a lot about military sexual trauma. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They don't talk about. They don't understand how it even exists. Um,
yes.
would you elaborate a little bit before we go to Peter Quinn at Paralyzed Veterans of America, and let him elaborate a little bit on that? Would you mind taking it and please defining a little bit more on MST?
So MST occurs, and it doesn't have to be like a physical assault. You know, it is
Right.
also where, and a lot of time veterans don't understand that it doesn't have to be a physical assault. It is where there's an environment, um, that is have a highly sexually charged environment, where the
Hmm.
individual feels it may, like I say, may not be a physical assault, but that environment is there to create that sense of discomfort for the individual.
Like
And
harassment,
yeah,
you're talking
harassment,
about. Hmm.
right? And I feel like what people also don't realize is that, military sexual trauma is not just for women. It doesn't occur to just women
Right.
alone.
Right.
There are also male soldiers that experience military sexual trauma,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But
And
it's not
ask the question, why me?
right,
Yes.
you
Hmm.
know, because then sometimes, they not sometimes, but if you're doing what you are supposed to do, why is there attack on me? Or
There
why
you go.
did you choose? Why did the perpetrator choose this individual as the target for
Mhm.
harassment or sexual assault?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Very
And
good.
so, um, the military being a closed system, and that's changing to where now, veterans are able to seek outside counsel, which is a big deal, because when you're in a closed system, where do you go?
Yes, right, when you're in a
And
closed system.
yes,
And that's in a civilian standpoint too. I mean, for a PTSD and sexual trauma from a civilian standpoint, is there also. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. But understanding, see, because when you're working for a civilian organization, you can say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to go
right.
find work somewhere else.
Come on, come
I'm
on.
not going to do this anymore. I'm going to relocate somewhere else. You
Mm-hmm.
have that autonomy. As a service member, we don't have that autonomy,
Right,
right?
right.
And because we don't have that autonomy, it creates a different set of circumstances. And we have to understand that power differential that's present. So let me continue on that first vein. The armed forces is a closed system. And so when something happened to that service member, the
Mm-hmm.
chain of command is expected to handle that appropriately in the best interest of the service member, right?
Yes,
Should
yes.
be. However, that's not what happens in some cases, rather. It
In
is
some
not,
cases, yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is not handled in the best interest of the armed forces, neither is it handled in the best interest of the service member. Because if you have a service member that really cannot function as they should, that's the military ultimately losing out on the skill for that service member, on the money they've invested to,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
in the money they've invested to make this person a service member, and the
yeah,
skills that they have. This service member is now in a different state of mind where they're not
definitely.
functioning as they should. And so no one really loses. And I mean, no one really wins.
No one, yeah.
Ultimately, yeah,
And we want
ultimately,
a win-win. We want a win-win.
exactly. We would want a win-win.
Yes.
Ultimately, the military loses, the individual loses, and the people around them lose
Oh,
because
yes.
then,
Oh, yeah, I know you can elaborate on
yeah,
how it affects the family unit. Okay.
absolutely.
And you have in previous interviews that I've had with you, and I appreciate your time today. Before I want to move on to Peter Quinn and get Paralyzed Veterans of America an opportunity to elaborate a little bit further on what he's seen today, what he's heard today. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to what Paralyzed Veterans of America is all about. Lori, this is Charlie Thompson, and I don't know if you've seen this video, but we're going to play it for you just for a moment.
My name is Charlie Thompson. I live in North Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been a PBA member about maybe 8-9 years. It's been very rewarding being a PBA member and getting the opportunity to work. I didn't know I was going to be able to do it with all of my limitations, being a quad, being paralyzed from chest down, really don't have use of my fingers. Being a personal trainer, I mean, I can't do that anymore. So I wouldn't know even where to start. Looking for a job that works from home, I wouldn't have got the job here from PBA. Because the job I'm working now, they cater to a veteran. That told me a lot about the PBA staff, people that are working with us. They really care. Working with PBA gave me an opportunity to work from home, and that's exactly what I needed.
PVA. I'm a lifetime member of PVA and have been for many, many years now. And I recommend a lot of veterans over to the PVA here in Arizona. Peter Quinn, thank you so much for being with us. We filled your head with a whole bunch of stuff today.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
What stood out the most? What do you want to elaborate on the most, sir?
Um, Actually, I think what you'll be surprised, I'm not surprised to hear what you're saying. I think in recent years it's finally come to fruition that this has been going on for generations, and it's about time that it's being taken care of. I think that
older members or older veterans have been traumatized even more,
Mm-hmm.
and that only recently have they been able to come forth. Just like I was told the other day by my service officer that a lot of veterans don't come forth about PTSD until essentially it starts to ruin their life. And then maybe they'll come forth, or their wife will push them forth, or a loved one will push them forth to talk about their PTSD. And I think that MST, what I've seen in recent months, literally, is the same way. Veterans that I've now talked to who are volunteers down the chapter are all of a sudden voicing these issues and talking about them, like being as a quadriplegic, we talk about, I mean, stuff that you would never talk about at the dinner table, bowel and bladder care. I mean, it's not something we sit here and have a meeting about with everybody who isn't, but those who have it, being a quadriplegic, I know most of my board of directors bowel and bladder routines. I mean, it's just the way it is. We all talk about it. We all have accidents. We all have issues, and I think that that comes from being knowing you're in a safe place.
Ah,
And I think MST is a tough situation because you don't know when you're in a safe place.
oh, wow.
Also talking with male counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
Like my female board members, um, and I have no problem with, again, bowel and bladder. Sue Woody, as you well know, Sue's on my board, and she and I talk back and forth like, we were standing together in a stall. So
Yes.
it is what it is. But I'm saying when it comes to MST, I think only in recent years have I heard women vets voice their opinions on what's gone on, talk about it, allow it to know it's part of their PTSD. And that
Yes.
in most cases it seems to have happened more than one time. Which
Oh, yes.
the
Wow.
maybe because of where I was in the military and what I was doing, it comes as amazing to me because I didn't actually work with females in the military. So I worked flight crew and I traveled with aircraft. So we didn't have females on it with the groups.
Okay.
So it was kind of a different world. And
Yes.
when I got on base and I was off, I was out. So
So as a,
I was off the base as much as possible. So
I see.
I was back during the Jimmy Carter era, and they said there was never going to be another war again. So after I left King Salmon, Alaska, they sent me back to Dover, Delaware, and it was close to home, so I just drove home on my 4 days off when I wasn't traveling or whatever. So it was a simple thing for me. Uh, Whereas now
Well,
seeing what goes on and what I've heard from other veterans and so forth, it's all over, or it has been all over.
yes.
And even still today, let's face it, in the real world, it happens every day. So I
Let
think,
me
yes.
let me ask you, because for the sake of time, I just want to ask you about your outreach from the Paralyzed Veterans of America. I I appreciate that you brought out, and it's very, very important that you brought out that MST is more or less, especially the label in itself, is more or less a current term. Older veterans did not have that term, and trauma was not even. I mean, you were laughed at if you even
No.
acted like you had trauma, whether you were going to combat or not. But when you do your outreach, do you find that there are many people that have the why me syndrome of, look at my circumstances, they're worse than other people's circumstances?
Oh, without a doubt, I get phone calls every day with, I have a bad leg and I can't find a job.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, they're calling me in the office, I'm a quadriplegic and I work 5 days a week. I'm here today and it's Sunday, I've had, I would say, 4 phone calls this weekend alone that are work related. And my hand function is extremely limited.
Okay.
And I have many, many other veterans that I work with across the country who are also quadriplegic. I'm not service connected. I wasn't injured in the service, so therefore my income comes from that paycheck that comes every 2 weeks. So if I
Mhm.
don't work, I don't get paid. And I think that um, if other veterans and other people turn around and realize life still has to go on, no matter
Yeah.
what's happened to you, that
Life.
it
Yes.
would be it would be, yes, something happened. I'm going to deal with that problem on a psychological, but also the fact I'm going to stay with my life and continue. I'm going to keep a roof over my head. I don't drive anymore because about 4 years ago, my injury progressed. I had to be
Mhm.
driven, which is really tough.
Okay.
I mean, I think driving was harder than losing walking because I used to be able to drive cross country by myself all alone. And now I can't even, get over to the train station without a ride.
And
So,
there's nothing, if you did do the why me question, you've developed strategies now to move forward and you didn't give up.
well, no, I mean that's what I'm saying is I find people who, and the other thing I find is that sometimes people are their own their own bad feelings or their own how do I put this? Their lack of following through with the entire situation is they become their own worst enemies. I find many veterans who call me and tell me, I'm having a problem with this, and so I didn't go to this. I'm like, did you call and cancel the appointment? No. Did you call? Have you called and told anybody? No. My question is why? And I
Right.
think that differentiates, in my opinion, with MST because people would come and say, well, this happened to me, and people just didn't believe them. With
Well,
today, with the problems that I deal with from everybody else, is that a lot of them just don't go. Well,
yes.
I got up late and didn't feel like going to get that wheelchair set up. So now I'm sitting in my house because I have no batteries, and I didn't set that appointment up. I think that your synopsis on self-care
It
is very
sounds like
important.
it sounds like it's preparation that's an issue too, that they're not prepared for the opportunity that you present, that Paralyzed Veterans of America presents to people. They're not preparing themselves mentally and even physically for for the opportunity to follow
I
through.
have veterans who will not go to the spinal cord clinic, yet that is the clinic that will get them what they need for
Wow.
the spinal cord illness or disease or injury. And when you have a veteran who won't go to a clinic, I have one up in Cottonwood who I am begging to go to a spinal cord clinic, and he refuses because the nurses come to his house. So he figures, why should he go when I've talked to his service officer and kind of off the book said to me, Pete, I can't get his claim in until he gets a doctor to do the final paperwork. So there's
But
someone who's being held up from actually getting good funds, having better living conditions, uh, more support system because they're not helping themselves.
well, thank you so much for being part of what we're doing today. This program, it's Differently Abled Network. Okay, and we thank all the guests that have come on today. We had more guests than we anticipated, but it turned out all right. We're gonna move to closure now of our program. But before we do, if you've really enjoyed and you see that this program and what we're trying to do, just this little outreach, 1 hour a month that we do right now, we hope to do more. We hope to extend this to a week, every week. But if you feel comfortable, take out that credit card and go to whiteappleinstitute.org and make a donation. And that automatically makes you a member of the Differently Abled Network. And we're hoping that you do look at the person sitting next to you and realize that they could be underserved, and ask the question, how are you, without anticipating the answer is going to be fine or I'm good. Okay, anticipate that the answer might be something else, and let your heart be there. We also have volunteer opportunities. Now, before I close, we always have something very, very special that we close with. It's the differently abled artists and musicians, and Chaplain Lori Elwood helps us put that together. And why that's so important is that we talk about healing all the time. We talk about restoring hope. And I can't think of anything that does that more than music and art. And so what we try to do at the end of each program is we have artists and musicians come on, or we share information about them that is encouraging and inspiring to others. Lori, what do you have as an inspirational message for us today?
Well, I have a song that we're going to play for you that I think pretty much says it all. It's a very clear song. In my life personally, music has made such a difference. And even if it's just turning on the radio for a while, or, if you like to dance, go in your living room and dance. I've seen Dr. Apple dance in her chair with a drum, just losing herself in the music. And if you like to draw, just scribble out a little picture. It's not that you have to set aside a huge chunk of time in your day, because I know everybody's saying, I'm too busy to be creative. Everybody's creative in different ways, but find a little bit of creativity. And for today, find some music someplace in your day. And we'll go on. And this is a good friend of mine, Daniel Nahmad, who wrote this song that I think is so appropriate to so many people. And he'll speak a little bit about that as he introduces the song. So this is Stealing
Lori, Chaplain Lori, I truly appreciate what you've done to put this song together for us. And we're a little bit over on time right now, but I want you to play that song for us because it means a lot to me. When you first told me I have steel in my own spine, actual steel in my spine. And I was wondering why somebody would write a song about that until I heard what you were talking about in the song. It's really an inspiration about the spiritual steel that we all have in our spine. Dr. Jane, do you have anything more that you wanted to say, or Dr. Miranda, before we close?
No, thank you for just, all the work that she's doing and the input that she brought to our attention today.
Thank you. Thank you. Lori, let's hear Steel in Your Spine. And thank you all so much for joining us today.
So let's bring Daniel back. What do you say? He's got another nominated song. This is an awesome song. It's called Steel in Your Spine. Daniel Nahmad. And this time he's going to have a piano in front of him.
The words in this song are just fantastic.
Hello. Another new song. This one inspired by a growing realization that most of us, most of the time, do our best to emulate normal, do our best to appear fully functioning, put on a brave face, a smile, a I'm fine, how are you? But that it doesn't take much digging beneath the surface to find right in front of you or me a survivor, someone with guts, someone with perseverance, someone with pain through which they have battled to arrive where they are. So it's really intended to be a song about compassion and connection, and you may relate to it in one direction or the other. And it's on my new album. The album's called Real. The song is called Steel in Your Spine. Here we go. Thanks again.
Thank you again, all of you, for participating in the Differently Abled.
I've never understood how you turned out so good with all that you've had to endure. expected you to make the best of you. The deck stacked against you for sure. The more that I learn, the more I admire how you never got burned being forged in the fire. 'Cause an ordinary mortal would have quit by now. With a life like a field full of mines. You're human, I know, only muscle and bone, but you must have steel in your spine. You never talk about when you first figured out that you'd have to go it alone. It breaks my heart to picture you, a child hiding out of view, so young to fight on your own. But still here you stand, and still here you are, igniting the world with your luminous heart. Yeah, an ordinary mortal would have quit by now. With a life like a field full of mines. You're human, I know, only muscle and bone, but you must have steel in your spine, and that would explain how you never admit any pain. So let me just say that child has a lot to be proud of, but no longer needs to keep the world at bay. If you were mortal, you'd have quit by now. You've been counted out so many times. You're human like me. You can bruise, you can bleed, but you must have steel in your spine. Yeah, a mortal would have quit by now, but your light was determined to shine. You're so much more than they see, a superhero to me. Oh, you must have steel in your spine. You must have steel in your spine.
Thank you, all of you who have steel in your spine. Yes, yes. I wish you well. See you next month, February 23rd.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Morgan Garlick, for your work today, co-host. Thank you, Consuelo Estete, for participating today. And we really appreciate Zenny Stewart for showing up. If I could, I'd hug you right through it, but catch that hug, Zenny. Just catch that hug. It's there. Okay? Dr. Jane, you know Zenny. That's right. Well, thank you. Lori, you can close us out now. Thank you very much, Peter Quinn, for participating.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here, Doc.
We hope to have you back again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl Schmidt.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's long, but we hope that in today's world, we can take them and make little shorts out of them and encourage people
Yeah.
to come forward.
Well, I actually, was my first annual training back in 1974. A guy said, "Hey, you want to fool around?" I said, "I'm married." He said, "So am I. What's the big deal?" I said, "No." He said, "I'll jump off the roof of the building." I said, "Go ahead." And he never bothered me again. So you just fight back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.